In this video, we will look at personal fouls we haven't covered so far in other videos, as well as fighting. There are quite a few personal fouls that are in the rules. All personal fouls are discussed in Rule 9, Article 4. An opponent cannot be hit once he is either out of the play or once the play is dead. This includes both runners and non-runners. We can see this foul when a block continues well after the play. We can also see this when a runner has had his forward progress stopped and is being driven backwards. If the tackler is able to drive the runner backwards several yards, he can't pick him up and then slam him to the ground. Next, if a player loses his helmet, he cannot be contacted by an opponent. However, if there is contact while the helmet comes off, there is leeway with this and the contact is allowed until the players can disengage. A player who has lost his helmet cannot engage in contact either, as this is a foul for illegal participation. One of the hardest places to officiate dead ball personal fouls is along the sideline. Obviously, if a player is near the sideline, he is allowed to be contacted, even if he indicates he is trying to head towards the sideline. However, we need to be alert to when the play becomes dead. Once the player is out of bounds, any avoidable contact is illegal. A new tackler can't join in with a teammate once the runner has stepped out. A tackler cannot renew a charge, add additional force, or slam the runner to the ground once the ball is out of bounds. And finally, if a runner steps out and the tackler can disengage without bringing the runner to the ground, he must do so. But if he can stop and does not, it's a personal foul. Wing officials need to make sure that they don't turn their backs to this action. If a play carries out of bounds, the official should be watching the players as they go into the sideline. They should be marking the spot with their foot, but if they need to go into the sideline, drop a beanbag and continue following it to make sure the players are protected. And then other officials can help with the spot. Players cannot kick an opponent. This includes intentional contact with the foot, shin, or knee. It's also prohibited from meeting a blocker with a raised knee. This is one of those fouls that can easily be flagrant and can include a disqualification for the player. A player cannot strike an opponent with a fist, locked hands, forearm, or elbow. We need to be aware of the intention of these strikes. A player is allowed to punch the ball out of an opponent's possession. If it's apparent that the player is trying to do this and accidentally hits the runner as well, we wouldn't have a personal foul. However, if it looks like it's intentional, this is a personal foul and can also be considered for an ejection. An open-handed slap to the head of an opponent is also a personal foul. We can see this quite frequently in the trenches, and umpires and referees need to be alert to this illegal move. Hurdling is one of those highlight plays we see in college and professional football. However, in high school, hurdling is a personal foul. This is defined as a player jumping with either one or both feet or knees over an opponent who still have one or both of their feet on the ground. So we have a few important factors here. The most important is the position of the opponent. If he still has either or both of his feet on the ground, he cannot be hurt. However, if he is diving or laying on the ground, he can be jumped over. This is a play that can catch us by surprise, so we need to make sure that we see all of these criteria met before throwing this flag. We don't want to flag an athletic play that is legal. A player cannot throw his helmet to trip an opponent. Players are also not allowed to position themselves on the shoulders or body of a teammate or opponent to gain an advantage. The most common place we can see this is when a team is trying to block a kick or even a pass. Finally, a player or non-player cannot contact an official. If this happens, it is also an ejection. When this happens, it's best to throw your flag and get out of the situation as quick as possible. Find another fellow official to help prevent this escalating to something worse. All personal fouls are 15-yard penalties. If a foul rises to the level of flagrant, they also include a disqualification. These penalties are enforced from the basic spot for live ball fouls and from the succeeding spot for dead ball fouls. One of the biggest confusions with officials is dealing with dead ball personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Remember, a personal foul involves contact, while an unsportsmanlike conduct foul cannot include contact. While they both include a 15-yard penalty, if a player or coach gets two unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, they are disqualified. A player can technically get an unlimited number of personal fouls. A fight is probably the worst thing that can happen for officials in the game. Football is a physical and emotional game. If a fight occurs, typically the game is already heated and there have been multiple personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and probably other warnings. While preventive officiating and flags can help keep things in control, there are times when either we don't see it coming or there's nothing we can do to stop a fight. A fight is considered to be any attempt by a player or non-player to strike or engage an opponent in a combative manner unrelated to football. Contact does not have to be made in order for us to have a penalty for fighting. If a player swings a punch at an opponent and does not make contact, we still have a foul for fighting. Hopefully, in this situation, we can get it taken care of quickly before there's any retaliation. But we still need to make sure that the player who throws the punch is ejected. If a fight occurs, any substitute or non-player personnel on the sideline, excluding the head coach, are charged with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and ejected. Use common sense when enforcing this, especially with assistant coaches. If an assistant comes onto the field to hold back his sideline from coming on the field, it's probably not wise to eject him. However, if he comes on and grabs an opponent player, we probably need to eject him in that case. When it comes to players, it can get really confusing if we have a fight occur while substitutions are occurring as well. I'd recommend giving the benefit of the doubt to any player who is coming on or off but not participating in any way with the fight. When a fight occurs, we need to avoid making contact with players as much as possible. The worst thing that can happen to us is have a player that we are holding get hit by an opponent. Our goal should first and foremost make sure the players know we are near and are seeing them. Hard whistles are important. We also need to get the number of players who are involved with the fight. Players who are holding back their own players should not be held responsible for fighting. We want to get the number of players who are attempting to engage with opponents. Finally, wings need to do the best they can to keep their teams in their team boxes. If a player or non-player comes on the field, they can be ejected even if they don't actively participate. Head coaches are the exception to this. If they are helping de-escalate this situation and break up the fight, they are allowed to come onto the field. However, if we see them participating in the fight, they can also be ejected. Any player who participates in a fight are charged with a personal foul, which is a 15-yard penalty, and are also ejected from the game. Any non-player who comes on the field are charged with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and are also disqualified. These are 15-yard penalties as well. During a fight, any equal number of fouls will offset each other. Any extra penalties against one team can be enforced. For SCISA, if we have an ejection of a player for any reason, they are required to remain in the team box for the rest of the game. They cannot be sent off to the locker room or bus unattended by an adult. If an adult is ejected, they are required to be out of sight and sound of the playing field. This means they cannot remain in the stands or around the field at all. Also for SCISA, if we ever have an ejection, this needs to be typed up and emailed in to the district coordinator as soon as possible.